Our final presentation for today is by René Sterk. Hopefully, I'm really looking forward to this presentation based on the topic or the title. When René has also given me the shortest bio, which is René has taken the red pill. Now, I'm a very ignorant person because my understanding of the red pill is you're dead 10 seconds after you've taken it. So René is alive and well, and
Absolutely.
he did explain to me the difference between the red pill and the blue pill, and I'll let you do that to the audience today. But his presentation today is titled QAQC, Has Anyone Seen My Dead Horse? Thank you, René.
Thanks, Mark. I'm just going to set my own timer here so that I don't get nervous looking at you, Mark. That wonderful shirt. I'm actually a bit at a loss of where to begin. Actually, my last slide is effectively your last word. So I'll go straight to the end because we're saying the same stuff in a different version, right? And as you hear all these really good talks, and I'm actually completely blown away by the quality of the talks because I always joke, I don't like conferences anymore. I'm bored with half of the talks that get presented, not because I'm too smart, I'm just literally not finding inspiration. But to me, this was absolutely a day of inspiration. And as you can probably tell, I'm I'm just like an excited schoolboy. I'm just so excited. I could ask 100 questions and I could stand there for hours, but I'll get stuff thrown at me. So I'm not going to do that. But I am going to take a different course to the other presenters mostly. And not for any other reason than, I could go down all the rabbit holes. And boy, how many rabbit holes are there? I mean, calculated precision, let's go. We could talk for hours and it's fascinating. We can talk about CRMs, we can talk about drill holes, et cetera, war stories. They're so important. It's all been said. But what I want to do is, I guess I want to start by acknowledging, why am I actually even up here? Right? Why are any of us up here? Because I don't have the gray hairs just yet, but I'm sort of floating in the middle, as my kids will have me know, right? I'm almost old, I guess, 47. So do I actually know anything? And the danger is that you stand here preaching and you're actually one of those people that think they know and you don't know. The Dunning-Kruger thing that's been overhyped. We've all heard about that as well. And as a resource geologist, that's the trap, the Dunning-Kruger trap. And I'm, watching this is we want to listen to the war stories. When has it gone wrong? Because you learn from that straight away. I was somebody said every time you go to a lab, you learn something. I was at a mine lab in Africa last week and I learned something new and it was really, really interesting. So you constantly keep learning. So my presentation, or let's just be honest, it's a rant. Right? And some of you who know me know what's coming, but it's more of a journey because I'm coming a little bit left field. I wasn't trained at UWA. No, don't know anybody there. I'm some random dude from Holland. My native language is not English, as you can tell. So I'm fascinated by language. I'm fascinated by it. Just take the Jor code. What a bizarre document. Sorry, I'll take my Jor hat off because I do sit, as does Rod, on the Jor committee. I am absolutely amazed by the wording in it. And I can bore you all day long about why certain things, the must and the shoulds, right? Interesting. The same thing is happening here with QAQC. I was an exploration geologist putting samples into things and doing stuff that other people tell you. And at one point, I hope you go like, hold on. What are we actually trying to do, right? And that is the question. What the hell are we trying to do? And most of this stuff, as I go from side to side to side, because I do have a couple of decades experience in this stuff, and I have the luxury of, I don't know, having seen 400 projects or something, so that's going well for me. I have a framework of reference, I think, even though I'm still learning, but I'm tapping into that to go like, well, why are we doing this? Because a lot of these sites, other than your site, obviously, because that was actually truly wonderful to watch. And I'm going to steal that video the moment it hits YouTube. Most of the sites I go to, it's all the same stuff. Why are you taking duplicates from waste material? I mean, here's 15,000 bucks. Stop doing it. Right. I'll send the invoice. Right. It's crazy. So asking stupid questions is what I'm very good at. And then not feeling, sorry for the outcome, because ultimately sometimes there is a bit of a stupid question. So what I'm going to talk to you about is is kind of how I see the world of QA/QC, but I don't actually really like talking about QA/QC because it's the wrong focus. It's an overhyped concept. It's a couple of letters that get us so boxed into the 1 in 20 crowd. If I ever meet the 1 in 20 guy on the street, I'm going to punch the lights out. I'm done talking about 1 in 20. It's the wrong question to ask. How many standards should I submit to satisfy JORC? Fuck off. I'm not interested, right? It's just not interested. We need to have the conversation at the right level. Now, I'm not saying that I have got all the answers, but I like to think in the more systematic solution to this, and a lot sits into words. And I'm actually really interested in it. Hopefully I can excite you a little bit about that universe. And it actually is obviously aligning what everybody's already said. Oscar just talked about data quality systems. That's the language we need to use. Stop talking about QA/QC, right? And that helps us asking the right questions. Right, now I need to click a button to actually get to a slide because I must have something to show. So, this whole world of QA/QC, favorite movie, obviously. I'm a kid from the 80s, so, this is awesome. But, we need to move on from this. And this is actually a presentation that is unchanged, as other authors have said. I'll be presenting the same presentation in 10 years' time, and then I'll actually be Bolton, and in 20 years' time, and I'll have a cane, and it will be the same. And nothing would have changed because there is no new science. I presented last year at a conference. They wanted to know the new science in QA/QC. I'll show you in a couple of slides what I believe the new science is. So I feel that I'm at the, 2024 World Conference on the Treatment of Scurvy. That's what I'm thinking I'm doing, right? I mean, it's done, people. We know the treatment for scurvy. We can move on. Right? There is no new solutions. There are new tricks. There's no new software. There's no new science. There's no new statistics. It's all the same, right? So this is interesting because everybody's talking about hobby horses, and I didn't sneak this slide in over lunch because, and it aligns perfectly. We've set all of this up from the start, right? We had a little chat to each other. So this is why I called my presentation Beating a Dead Horse. That was the last one, I think. That was the GeoHug talk that I did 4 years ago. And now I've just changed it to, has anybody seen my dead horse? Because I can't even beat it anymore. So what we're not going to do is talk about tips on QA/QC and war stories and case studies. We're not going to look at scatter plots, indeed, because those things should be relegated to the back ranks. And we're also not going to bitterly complain about the lack of professional standards, right? I mean, we can do that all day long. Everything is screwed and we're all going to die and it's all terrible. This today was actually super interesting. We got so many good things happening, but we're not getting it out. It's just not coming out, right? I mean, Cliff Stanley wrote his papers in fricking 2009, and Marat wrote his 2011 and 2008 papers. It's done, right? Here they are. So the latest advancements on QA/QC, it's an empty slide because there are none. That's it. And you only have to read these papers. Now, Barry and Linda and so on have added another paper to it, and I've read it, and it's good. But is there anything really new in there? I don't know. I'm not so sure. It's a great summary, and it's open access. So commend them for doing it. But there is nothing really new in there, right? It's all out there. These papers are my favorites, and obviously this one from the 2014 series on mineral resource estimation. Great papers, but it's done. So my learnings, I guess, were seven learnings because, people like bullet points, right? If this would be a YouTube video, I would stand there with a little thing was calling 7 things to know or something stupid like that. But let's run through 7 points here quickly. What can you see if you do a lot of this sort of QA/QC work? Well, the why is missing. There's absolute pure dogmatism. We just do stuff. Because you just insert standards because that's what we do. Why the hell are you submitting standards if your lab is submitting the same freaking standards? Sorry, I just took all your revenue away. But why are you submitting these CRMs? Well, useful sometimes, and yes, use them and so on. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're literally just wasting your money on a good cause, obviously, right? But you're throwing your money away because the why is missing. We don't know how to analyze the data. We don't know what to do with it. We don't even know what we're trying to prove. And I'll swear, we talked about hills to die on. Thank you, because I am going to talk about the existential crisis. I love that word, and I wrote it down. It's like I'm gonna take that and use it. I do believe we have an existential crisis. The wire is missing. Inserting standards is not actually mandatory. Can we just agree on that? The JOR code doesn't say you shall include. It doesn't say that, right? It's useful to do, but know what you're doing first. So the 1 in 20 crowd, hey, not interested. It depends. That's a classic answer. Any geologist, what do you think about her? Oh, it depends. It's this classic answer to everything. Right. This one is key, right? And this one has broken me as I sort of went through the cycles after asking stupid questions. Materiality, right? Because we can run a t-test. Oscar just spoke about statistical testing, right? So you run your CRMs, great. And now you have a mean, you have another mean. And in Holland, in high school, you learn about t-test, of comparing two means. And if you want to be a scientist, that's what they teach you. If you look at two populations of people and they look at, how smart they are, how thick they are, or how tall they are, and then they compare means. And then there is a p-vector. And when you're old enough, you had to look that up in a book somewhere at the back and compare alphas and p's and all that sort of stuff. Statistical significantly different. That's how science works when you're comparing shit. That's how it works. We don't do any of it, literally. I don't understand why that is. Now, maybe I do, because when it's statistically significantly different, it can still not be material. It does your head in, right? So we are in an existential crisis because when is it good enough? It is a realistic question to ask and a good one to ask, I believe. So, this is after we've seen all the train wrecks today. I'm pointing at that screen, and I should point at that screen, obviously, otherwise I get in trouble. I say projects rarely fail to QA/QC, but we've seen a whole bunch of examples today where that wasn't the case, right? I always joke when I run these courses, those trucks will be driving there tomorrow as well, regardless of that little CRM doing its thing. Don't worry about it, right? Focus on the important stuff. So I think the materiality aspect is something that we need to lift to the foreground, and I'm going to come back to that. When is it important, right? Statistical significance is not the same as materiality, and that's something that we haven't quite captured in all these articles and papers and so on. Right, so here's another learning. But when we talk about QA/QC, obviously that needs to fit in somewhere, right? So SOPs are critical, right? But again, it's because the JOR code says it, right? Or some other code says it. Why are SOPs critical? Because if you're all doing the same stuff, then you're reducing variance. And somebody said this morning that variance isn't important. I got a freaking heart attack, but variance is the resource killer, right? I mean, bias is crap as well, but we want to limit variance. And if I tell you to stand on a scale every morning at the same time to weigh yourself, and that's in my SOP, right? I get far less variable data. But if I go and have breakfast first and then I stand on a scale, right, I have far more variable data. So telling you how to do something reduces variance, but that principle is not sitting in our SOPs. They're just documents so that you can show them to your auditor, say, we got SOPs. Nice, eh? We got SOPs. It's fascinating. You actually take the SOP. If you're doing a proper audit, you take the SOP to that station and say, James, could you just show me what this says? And you say, oh, well, that's not what it says. Oh, we stopped doing that 2 years ago because it isn't working. Well, why the hell is it in this SOP then? Right? So that whole system isn't working in most places I go to. So, and it's fascinating because if you actually talk to the labs, their SOPs are perfect. They are just, and actually, funnily enough, the drillers, right, who are just there standing all day, their SOPs are really, really good if you actually ask for them. Ask for the diamond drillers' SOPs on the rigs. They're really well written, tell you exactly bullet point what to do. So SOPs is a major point of improvement, even though it shouldn't be in 2024. Nobody quantifies accuracy and precision. And we just heard Oscar talk about quantification, and I want to know more, but I find this fascinating. We do this stargazing at scatter plots. There's this wishy-washy process of looking at a scatter plot, and then we go, in a competent person's experience, this is just mightily fine. I don't understand what you can see from a scatter plot other than that's a shitload of scatter, right? There is nothing to really compare with. And listening to Mike talk about the only way to deal with your duplicates this morning, that was fascinating because that's what you need to do. But how many operations do that? I really, honest to God, I haven't come across any yet. Right? So we have to get to a process of quantifying accuracy and precision, and it's possible. And if somebody wants to talk to me after this, because we had a quick chat and I'd love to talk about this, it is possible to quantify it. And if you quantify it, you can do stuff. Because if it was 6 out of 10 last month and it's 7 out of 10 this month, right, there's a difference. You can't do anything with words. We need to get away from these waffly words. Another point, the important connection between variance in sampling and measuring, and variance in a variogram and variance in estimation, the stuff that Rod was talking about, and therefore the quality in our decisions is not understood. You know, the whole duplicates. Half-core duplicates are sitting in the ground as 2 half-cores. And if half-core is your standard sample size, right, the average variance between this and this minus that squared, you sum all of them up, divided by 2 times n, there's your variogram, there's your nugget, right? There is a combination, there's a connection between the variogram and your duplicates. So people, I go around these sites and it's that we stopped collecting core duplicates 20 years ago, all the sites I go to. And they go, who is that person that keeps telling everybody to stop collecting core duplicates? Is it any one of you? No? I'm just interested because that's such a missed opportunity. And we heard this morning, why? Because if you've got visible gold and you've got no ORI lines and you've got a fieldy with 1 year experience deciding where to take the sample, I can guarantee you what goes in the sample bag, right? And you can't control that shit if you don't take core duplicates. So the whole precision thing, the whole variance thing is misunderstood and we're not using it. That graph that you showed there, why isn't anybody using that? Right? Because I have the same graph, you gave it to me as well. Opportunities missed. So, you know, variance duplicates are completely underused. That's where the value, forget the CRMs. Again, sorry, it's the duplicates that matter to me anyway. Oh, statistical process control charts. Right. If you are creating CRM plots, and you're writing stuff in your report and you've never heard of special cause variation, stop doing what you're doing, right? I Googled this stuff because I thought, what the hell am I doing? I found a book by a guy called Don Wheeler, and he wrote a book on statistical process control. So I rang the guy up. He's a professor somewhere in the US, said, look, can you just look at what we do as an industry? And he looked and said, Jesus Christ, that's weird. Right? And so I started looking into this, and then I talked to you about that. I mentioned in a question this morning, the book by Miller and Miller. They go through endless examples of statistical process control, Q-sum plots, Westgard rules, all sorts of things to actually establish special cause variation as a separation from common cause variation, because that's our only job. We're not here yet for accuracy. The only job that I have in quality control is to say whether the fricking system is in control or not. That's the only job that you have. You're not talking about accuracy just yet. System in control, system out of control. And if the system goes out of control, you stop and you react and you fix and you respond and you move on. That's quality control, as somebody pointed out really well this morning. This point has been made, and I don't think I need to dwell on this, but people have no idea what happens in a lab. Right, so, you know, geologists doing audits of labs is taking pictures of prep station and saying, oh, there's a bit of contamination there, right? Because there's some dust. It's crazy. You need to understand what happens there. And I'm no geochemist, but, you know, there's so much information out there, and this is a missed opportunity for us as an industry. But still, I will stand by this as well. There is way too much focus on the lab. Forget about the lab. It's not your problem most of the time, right? It really is. It's the rig. It's your drilling. It's your primary sample, as we're all told every single time, that RC rig, right? That's a pretty complicated, you know, industry, that RC rig that's sitting there at all its various things that can go wrong. So worry about the right thing. So last point, the purpose of verifications and audits are misunderstood. Verification, you know, NR 43-101, it says data verification. That's a chapter. But why is it not called data validation? And can somebody tell me the freaking difference between verification and validation? Because I'm Dutch and I'm stupid. Tell me, what is it? And then you start looking into it. And the red pine thing that you put up, when I saw that, it's data verification, proving that something exists. And that's important, because if they would have done that verification thing, they would have picked that up. Well, arguably not if it's the MD passing the sample straight to the database geologist. But you should pick that up with data verification. And your audits We don't have an ISO standard in our industry to do audits, right? And AMC gets called in to do an audit. I get called in to do an audit. What does that mean? I had one client who said, we want you to do an audit. It's okay, tell me what you mean by that. I can come in and take pictures. I can say, that looks all right. But do you want me to sign something? Do you want me to put a stamp on it? Does it go to the market? What is this audit thing? How deep does it need to be, this audit? You know, this is important. And if you look at the financial industry and you download the ISO documents for way too much money to actually see what you should do, you can borrow concepts from that. So there's a little image, hopefully, that will explain that further. I am going to close, but I might go 30 seconds over. So I'm advocating for this whole of system approach that incidentally, Oscar was talking about as well, I think in a similar way. A data quality management system. Let's stop talking about, this is my plea to get to the point. Stop talking about QA/QC and call this a data quality event. And people have already made that comment on the slide. You need to create a data quality management system. And you start with a DQO, please, can we understand the concept of a data quality objective? Without an objective, nothing works. You're just doing stuff. If you don't know what the expected threshold is, it can never pass or fail. This is the thing with duplicates, because we have no established data quality objective. Therefore, we collect duplicates. We get a scatter plot and we go, I don't know what to do now. You need to have thresholds. And if you think that I've made this term up, read some of the literature. The right people are talking about this in the right way. So Barry Smith's paper, they talk about this, thank Christ. And the paper on photon assaying that Simon just wrote talks about this because he knows what he's doing. We need to talk about data quality objectives. Here is a little thing from SDS, sorry, ALS person, from SDS, and it actually has a table in the Rocks to Minerals guide, which you can download for free, by the way. It's really great. And it actually says for different stages, we have different target relative precision and accuracy, a DQO. Right? And you need to define that for your operation, right? Because they'll be different based on your natural inherent variability and so on. This table from a Rutt's paper that you should all have under your freaking pillows if you're in this industry, this table is a DQO. So when you collect your duplicates in your report, the line that you write is, and that matches the DQO for this style of mineralization for this stage, blah, 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 or something along those lines. And if you do that indeed for your operation, then you will establish your thresholds and now you're cooking with gas, right? So DQOs, and we have them, they exist. Right, write good SOPs, we'll skip that. The whole thing with SPC, you know, these auto-generated plots, I'm done with them. You know, they don't work. You need to create proper plots. This is our own software if anybody's interested that does this properly. This is special cause variation. So here you stop the system, you fix it, so on. Not a month later, doesn't work. Quality control doesn't work. Time is an issue. You have to be there. This is why the lab is the only person who could do quality control in your lab. Putting CRMs in and then 3 weeks later saying something about it is not quality control. It just isn't. I've got a couple more slides, don't worry. I'll skip this. So audits. I said I would come back to it. Audits, internal and external, document everything, obviously, but this is a workflow that we've developed with RSC. If you want to do an audit at a site where you're a geologist going to a lab or to a drill rig, take the SOP, right? If it's not there, say something about it, right? And if it's there, do they talk about objectives? Is there quality control link? Does it actually say what you need to do with quality control? Is it best practice? Have you audited? Are they actually doing what they should be doing? Pass, fail, risk, right? Risk, we're supposed to talk about risk. So this is the last slide. This is what we use, this is what I've developed as what I call my data quality management system. It starts with a DQO, then you do your QA, your SOPs, your QC, which you do during the process. This is before, as somebody pointed out very well, right? It's a timing thing, right? Before, during, and after. Then you do quality acceptance testing. Don't worry about your bias. Don't worry about your precision. That's not your job. Your job is to say whether the system is in control. Whether it's in control, now you can take the data, like this system here. Let me just make my point. This system here wasn't in control. So don't take all of these data and then start comparing a mean. That's statistically, you get shot for that. As a resource geologist, the same as using two domains in a single ordinary kriged estimate. You can't do that. You have to say, I'm now using this, and now I'm looking at my accuracy. Now I'm doing my t-test, and I'm doing it separately for that. Right? That's the principle of process control. And in case you're thinking, this weird guy from Holland, get rid of that guy. There is an international standard, ISO 9000, Quality Management Systems, Fundamentals and Vocabulary. Google it, right? It's out there. These systems are out there in other industry. So, Rod, I promised I finished on this slide. I love this quote because to me, it's all about asking the right question. And I'm fascinated by this QA/QC stuff. The questions on why we're doing what we're doing. So thanks for listening. Yeah, any questions? I'm here for another half an hour.
Thank you, René.